for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. It's been a while, plus I don't have my microphone with me today, so I'm not sure about the sound. I hope the device is loud enough. I'm gonna try to speak up, although I really don't like to speak up so much. I like to be soft and but it is what it is, so I'm gonna have to yell a bit because we do have winds. It's actually been 2 weeks of hell here because the weather shifted so badly and so drastically into this mini ice age timeline, and there's a whole lot I could talk about this, and yet I do not want to, and I'm going to be further elaborating on why this is so today in today's video. And as always, as you know, there's so much I want to just pour out, but the weather was currently making things very impossible for me to just go outside and be in nature, let alone make a video and share with all of you what's been going on. And basically I've received a lot of the channeling about the truth of ascension and the new ascension realm, and I will be sharing that in the next video to come. Today I want to talk about this completion of this cycle or chapter of life that's been basically all my life, especially the last 10 years, and especially condensing it into this transgression matter in the last 2 years, right? So remember last year we were moving along, and we were moving physically, literally speaking, from one place to the other, and we finally got to this place, this house. It's actually at 1,000 meters elevation, and recent weather occurrences and events made things very difficult for us because we had huge windstorms and rain pouring. It was just difficult. It was horrible. Plus, I don't want to mention, as you can see, we went from bathing suits and me bathing naked on my balcony and getting all that sun pouring into my liquid light essence through, and all of a sudden we had to wear parkas and winter jackets. So it wasn't any time to actually go through the change of the seasons. And I've been noticing this phenomena, how especially in our place, which is already has longer winters here, but it's like the fall and the spring are just almost void of course. They're like no longer in existence because they try to modulate the weather, as to make it harsher and colder. Then we also had a solar flare impact. I mean, it was so much, right? Truly difficult for the body because it doesn't have any adjustment period. Like my body just couldn't adjust, and I've already had so much, as pain, and still experience this pain, chronic pain and fatigue in my body, as these lower impulses that were as a result of this transgression moving through my body still impacting me, these lower impulses. And each time I went deeper into releasing them, more came through. So basically this weather was just me sitting down. Basically I put everything to the side except my Patreon work and my sessions. I just basically remained with myself, really deep in my Christ journey, because a lot came through that, in that silence, only then you're able to notice what all is still blocking you, what all is still there as an impulse, but not truly your own pulse of life. And each time I had to follow through another wave of energy depletion. So I talked about this on Patreon quite a lot. I made very deep videos and insights. I even did one video that was for people who are not even aligned with the video content. They're just at the first tier level. So I really went deep, and I don't want to go into it today in this video. I'll just briefly, as an overview, present some things that are really important for all of you on this journey of liberation. And because it's a lot and I don't want to be outside too long, I'm kind of, it is chilly, and the sun is not present all the time. There's clouds, there's heavy weather modulation, as and because of that, as they're kind of forcing us and our bodies to go into the survival mode. And with us, it's even happening with the house. I mean, we were shown that this house was basically just a temporary station for us, so I could resurrect Aurea and allow myself to be just aligned after such a turbulent time of not having a home and just being evicted from each and every space. We're just pushed on forwards to keep on moving, which was really difficult. it would already be difficult without any luggage and baggage, but we have a lot. You know, I told you, this whole truck, I think of everything. And so it wasn't an easy journey. And basically, I came to a halt, let's say, about 2 weeks ago. And I made a more conscious choice to be more present with myself because I felt how depleted I still am. And then I had to follow through these waves of depletion and what they were telling me. And the first step was easier because it came through some of the people in my life that I gave all of my life force and all of my love to. And I had to notice a pattern of transgression, which was, you know, me just keep on going, keep on moving, give, you know, just keep on giving, but never receive, never relax, never just be. And it was so difficult for my body to unwind from that. As you know, with anyone who was a victim of any sort of abuse, it's hard to release those impulses. Even though the perpetrator might not directly physically be there, you're still having to go through waves of impulses that impact you. And it's basically what every victim of any type of abuse, as I've already said, had to go through. And some have never healed from that because these impulses they just go so deep and they affect us very deeply, okay? So at this final stage of that surrender, they told me it's like the last percentage of the transgression work and the healing. Basically, I was pushed into this solitary space when I had to be the hermit, and I had to declutter and unwind everything and everyone from my life besides just, you know, my work on Patreon and my group. But even that, at the minimum of what I felt I'm capable even of doing, because my body was so low. And I had to follow through these low states because, as I've been teaching you in the body impulses and the language of illumination coming through, how our body has to be aware, and it's growing in that awareness. So my body kept on telling me what's still not aligned, what's false, you know, don't give your energy here, this is not good, this is a pattern, you know. And each time I would say something to myself like, yeah, but I need to be there for this person, or I need to be because I'm the mother, yeah. And Spirit would say, no, you're the mother spirit. That is why so many come to you, because you have a mothering spirit. That's what the Elohim means. And I'm a direct Elohim consciousness incarnation. So they told me that's why people migrate towards you. But being in the mother spirit towards someone or with someone is not the same as mothering them and needing to be there for them, because it does deplete you, because it is a pattern. And that's kind of the pattern that transgressors were using to keep me always depleted. And when you're always depleted, right, you're running that goose chase and you're like on a hamster wheel, right? You're always depleting yourself. And the first step was actually easy, to notice how they're actually manipulating me through people. And what they do is they always choose people who they're close to you, or people you feel an affinity and closeness to, and then you would give usually overly to these people and overextend yourself. And that's kind of the trick. And they would use people who mean a lot, because that's where the bond is, right? And they would affect you through these bonds, because when I don't have a particular bond somewhere, there's nothing truly to use against you and to manipulate through. So that's basically what they were doing. Okay, so it's almost like, you know, you get all of this out of your system, but the pain remains. And when I shared this last video with you, like a summary of that work completing, I didn't say, now this is over and I'm in my old state. No, my body is not the same body anymore, unfortunately. I still experience so much pain in my body. The chronic pain symptoms will probably remain until my day of ascension, that I'm literally not in this physical body anymore. These impulses sometimes are still there, and I have to literally consciously shift the record. It's something that Jesus taught me so well. He said, just change the record completely. Not like modify it a bit and still be on the go, 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 needing to do all the time. So they were keeping me in that state, because when you're in that running out of yourself, right, always chasing for more and to do more, you're basically functioning on the principle of I am not enough, which is what the transgressors use to go against these beautiful bodies. You have to know that no illumined light being, no being who serves the Christ essence and God as that I am, will ever have demands on us that are overly extending our human body. Every time this is made at, you know, like that demand is made and we have a feeling that that's something I just need to do, and it's a feeling of need, it's not of a natural exuding of your presence, it's falsehood. And a lot of people don't realize that. And you don't, you know, it's kind of like that thing, you don't even know how tired you are, how depleted you actually are, how depleted your inner resources are, your reservoir of life force, until you actually sit down and be with yourself. And that's usually when you start dismantling. So my Illumined family told me, now you can see how much these impulses are still there. Now you can see, because before you were running around, Because remember, we were moving around all this time. I was healing these deep basically hooks into my body. Then we found this house and we had 2 months more so of this work. Then I spent a month and a half with someone all the time, training them, giving them my all, and then I had to stop myself and realize, whoa. And then my family told me, yeah, it's another manipulation, because it is simply what they do, because they would use someone. And for me, it was difficult to see that, to realize how deeply the manipulations can go. Because of course, obviously, as a normal human being, you would not tend to believe those kind of things, and how deep the darkness can go to influence you, for you to go against yourself. You know, like now in our world, how the darkness has learned through eons of time to be skillfully manipulating people in a way that people do good, just as they do good, they do bad upon themselves. Because everything is out there in the open. Everything you can find out, you can research, it's all out there. What's in the, the V, everything is out there. People now, like the main personas, right, on TV even, they're using the words NWO. All these things are being used right in your faces, and where people are still complying. So who's doing the bad upon our own bodies? We are. It's not them. So basically, they're trying to find these loopholes to run from the universal law, to not be judged and to not face the judgment of God. Because if they do that, they're free, right? They're running on a free pass. But unfortunately, that's not the truth. And the work we've been doing with Transgression has been bringing a lot of that up to God, these misinterpretations and these loopholes through which the dark has been trying to pull its plans through. And it's so complex, and I don't want to go into it in this video. We're going to maybe do more in the Ascension update. But today I really just want to share with you what my last recent unfolding cycle, still in continuation, has been about. So going back to that, right, how it's all in the open, how we basically then become our greatest own perpetrator. So the last stage of transgression is meeting the transgressionist within yourself, is meeting the monster that is you, that is you running around in these circles. Even though the impact came from the outside, the inception came from the outside, the last step will be you recognizing how you took these patterns and how you took these impulses and you're still running around with them and living them through your own body. How you become your worst enemy at the end. How all these, fear tactics, like for, in my example, what they're using with us is they're using our house, which is in a really bad shape because the roof is super old and has never been redone, and we just didn't know, because we were told a different story with, we were just a little naive, let's say, because we don't have that physical knowledge, right? We didn't work with that because we are in the Christ path, and I'm the chosen one, I'm the Illumined being, and I literally sometimes am clueless about these things, and I just trust people sometimes a little too much. And so what took place, right, everyone is saying is really bad, and then, I'm thinking, well, how will I live here the entire winter shaking like this? Because the leakage came even through my own room, and then the firemen had to come, and it was this whole complex thing. We were so afraid because at these vulnerable points, right, the darkness tries to play this fear of survival, and then it's really hard to move through, to move beyond it, and just to go in that. But no, I'm a being of Christ. Regardless of what's happening, I know that God is my Savior, and that meaning God, the I am. God is the only Savior. Jesus the Christ is not a Savior. No other being is a Savior. God is the one that makes the clarion call that by you serving God, God serves you in return. And that's kind of like the part that's been hidden out of the equation of the immaculate plan, that you have all of these light workers now saying, oh, we're serving this, and never in return really being served, and meaning really experiencing this divine love. We're all talking about it. All the people now, as you can see, they're talking about it. And I'm going to go deeper into that today, because recently, right, I had a session with someone, and all my sessions go really deep, and the session started with the person saying, because I asked them for their vision, how they see themselves, and they said, well, I want to be in service to all of humanity. And don't you still see online all these videos, right, when these light workers make the videos healing the earth, healing the planet, talking about this as it's our task, that's why we're here, we need to heal the planet. And we're going to, of course, discuss this more in the Ascension update, how this impacts us. But, every single truth that is the universal truth and universal law, has been not just hidden from us, but it's been reversed, it's been twisted around, it's been distorted. Because what Spirit said in the channeling is we don't serve humanity, because humanity is like all the people, good and bad, evil servants, like people who are in the benevolent timeline, they serve through benevolence, and those who serve in malevolence. That's what they believe they're serving, right? They're serving the great Lucifera and their agendas. And so that's what they believe. For them, she is the universal, ruling, overarching principle. And although she's not, that's what they believe, and that's how they serve. So, and then it's also all the humankinds and other terrestrial stations of life, you know, like other planets and planetoids. And then you would say, well, would I really be willing to bring all of that into my womb? Because the womb, when you're holding something within yourself, that's when you're really serving in a divine, godly way. You don't serve through doing, but you put things through love in your womb, and you're carrying them as an essence, and you're exuding your light into that. But most of humans, in their own evolutionary journey of the soul, they're not at the level of knowing how to even hold essences in their womb to not affect them. And the question came, well, would you be willing to hold all of that in your womb? And of course, the answer was no. Because in the truth, when you're serving the immaculate principle of life, the true service is you serving yourself, which is a group self, which is the oversoul self, in its own evolutionary journey of the soul, which starts as a mini progression of you learning through growth and through challenges, and eventually a soul becomes mature one, and then eventually it grows even into a wise one, and the work of soul for those beings would be a soul refinement work. No longer learning lessons and doing this and doing and serving through the doing principle. So that work of refinement is the last stage before a soul growing refined like a fine wine, right? Like an old ancient wine in the distillery of life, then becomes open to the journey of ascension and understanding the true ascending principle, not these distorted principles like Gaia is ascending, Earth is ascending. Look, you have to ask yourself a really real question. What is the immaculate principle of life? When you look at all of around you that is not immaculate or existing as of yet in its immaculate state, which is as God created it in the first place, right? And now you want to serve all of that, put it in your womb, do all for it. Like literally people who call themselves light workers would run around and deplete themselves and put all of that energy into healing the planet, which basically a planet is its own creation. It doesn't need you to be healed by you. Everyone's healing journey is independent and interdependent upon, it's a creation between your soul prism of life, or your soul creatrix, your soul's blueprint, and your physical body or the human body consciousness. And that's what I, started teaching, and I've always been teaching the embodiment process. I haven't really met people who do that, but everyone is running around trying to save the planet and save the earth and ascend the earth. You are not God. You don't see these timelines, what's truly here to ascend, but what you can ascend is yourself. And when you truly serve, you don't serve humanity, but you serve the spirit of humanity. There's a huge difference here. Because when you serve the spirit of humanity, you understand that the spirit of humanity always has been, always will be one. Right? It's a creation principle. And when you serve through that creation principle, you serve it first by serving yourself, not an egoic, only me identity self, an egotistical way, but serving in a way that walking your own journey towards that refinement, you put yourself as an exhibit and demonstration of how that can be done. So you put your own imprint in this book of life. You put your own soul imprint in the tree of life, which is all of beings, right? So you can't say at this time, may all of humanity be blessed and may they all return back to their immaculate design of life. Maybe not all of them want to at this particular time. And that is something that if you're truly an advanced awake being, you have to also realize and take upon within yourself, because when that is anchored within you truly, you will start serving life first, seeing life, witnessing life differently, and then also serving life differently, because you will stop being on that wild goose chase and thinking you have all the answers. There's a lot of brainiacs here, and some of them even watch me, and they're being wise smarty pants with me, trying to tell me the opposite, like, no, this is how it's done, and the master said this, blah, blah, blah. Someone was even, ignorant enough once in an email to tell me Jesus's life was not even like that, but it was like this and this, and he didn't manage to do this and that. And I was thinking, who on earth are you to know what Jesus's life and mastery and refinement was about? His oversoul knows, period. And he comes to beings when they would say, but I'm with Jesus. No, Jesus is with Jesus, and every single other master. You are being guided. These beings are loving illumined guides when you truly connect to their lumen counterpart aspect. But no one is with. Everyone who is with is you have to be with yourself, because there's people who only worship the masters and they don't even start walking their own evolutionary journey of soul, and they want everyone to be equal. And there's this false concept of unity consciousness, we're all one. Yes, but you don't really understand what it means until you're truly a mature one. And a mature one of God understands that unity means that even with all this duality, all the evil in the world, there's enough place and room in the heart of God that all of this can coexist somehow, unless it starts to penetrate, like the evil would start to not just walk its own path, but starts to interrelate and interpenetrate that which doesn't want to walk the path of evil and says, you're going against my own sovereignty and will. And this is why the concept of free will was also so misinterpreted. Your free will is your own sovereign birthright. It's not something you just use as an invocation. It's your birthright. But people are not using it properly because they're not aware of what it even is, because they have forgotten who they are as a being of God. They remember, they say, I'm a soul, I come from God. Yes, I have an oversoul. Maybe some of them realize that as well, how the division of high consciousness and mass consciousness goes into group consciousness aspects and then individuation aspects. And some of them would say that, but it's still just more of a esoterical principle in teaching that an actual usage of those principles in your own life to illuminate the path through the dark and through all of the BS, through all that it's fallen, false, and imprinted. And only then you're actually on the way of being a true divine godly one. The chosen one knows how to work with these principles. You don't worship them. You don't worship God even. You understand that God is the living principle within you, and God wants you to remember that for all of its children. But let's say some of these children now, of course, are stubborn and they don't want to. What do? Well, I keep on pushing until they will be ready. No, it's not what you do. Recently we had this beautiful meditation and a walkthrough with Master Illumined Jesus the Christ. And he said to us, yes, we're not complacent, and here we don't just say, well, it doesn't matter. Of course we feel like we have compassion for all those who are still misled and all in this false light concept. But he said we have to just observe and know that it is still what it is. No one can go against anything, not even great masters. Because you have to understand, if all life is divine, when you live true unity consciousness, you don't force things to be falling under the domain that you believe unity is. And not all are equal. In God's eyes, yes, but in what we embody, we're not. Some are closer to God because they've understood the principles of divinity more, applied them more, hence they became more God-like. We're all of God, but not all beings are so much of God, bringing God's consciousness through divine law, universal principles of life, and use them on their journeys, many journeys, not just this earthly one. And so rare of these beings are here on the planet, and I'm one of these beings, and I'm here on the planet, and I've been misinterpreted for years. People have not got me. They did not understand that what I'm doing is I'm not bantering over anything, I'm not judging anything, but I'm showing you the deeper principles of life, which you can either embrace or not, or you can stay in the falsehood, or you can join and keep on opening the doorways. Because each time, more veils of illusion will be dissolved, but the last veil of illusion is the one who actually will leave, drop the body, and go into the next adventure. That's the last veil, is actually the physical one, right? But we're not there yet. And again, different levels of where we are, and we don't want to compare. But what I'm saying is now there's this false concept of unity. We're all the same, and everyone has to have the same belief, and God is there. The only sameness is, yes, we're all children of God, period. And someone recently wrote me an email with the words, the truth and nothing but the truth and the absolute truth. Well, who are you to even, use these words? That's up to God. The absolute truth is divine Trinity, universal principles of creation, and divine law. And these truths are, no matter where you are, whatever in creation, in which density, in whatever dimension, they're the same principles of life. That's the ultimate. But for you to have a belief system and you say, well, I'm searching my ultimate through this, no, it won't work, because you're going to keep on failing, because you can't force something to be the ultimate if it's not. There's only one ultimate, and that's the immaculate truth of God. Okay? So a part of this journey of mine in this last stages of transgression work, as I've said, release the boo-boos and all these things I was witnessing, but they were trying to get me distracted, right, with so many things and juggling them. And so I couldn't really see all the time. And in this last step of surrender, I simply dropped everything away, went deeply into myself, and then I saw how few people, and Jesus showed me the same thing, how very few people actually would do that. He said, so many of them have a quick glimpse into what this ascension path is, and they're like, yeah, they get enthusiastic about it. They're so excited, you know. A lot of people who come under my wing, under my essence, if I would walk with them for a while, they get so excited, but then the moment I drop them and say, you know, try it for yourself, they're going to be immediately back to the mundane, the physical, the things that pull you, that, you know, the tricks that please the mind but not the soul. It's a constant in our world, and Jesus said the same thing. He says you can only plant the seeds, but for each individual, whether they would really walk this spiraling ascension path, so few would actually choose it, even those that were impacted with me directly. Some of these, let's say, I would meet physically. Not those of you who've been maybe listening and tuning into for a few years. Some people get so needy of this essence that I exude that they would try to kind of, you know, conjure up some sort of a relationship with me, even by force sometimes. And it doesn't go like that, my beloveds. You can't force things to happen. And every single time you will fail because your own body will show you you're not at that level of growth yet, because you haven't been cultivating it gradually. You haven't been following the steps. You just wanted the shortcut. And sometimes people see me as that shortcut. I cannot be a shortcut for anyone. Everyone has to do the work on their level. What I can do is I can love you the same way I love the truth. But my love for that truth, which is the ultimate, it's only one, and it's the principles of life, period. No opinion, no level that you're currently finding itself at. It's all relative. In that moment, it's all relative. Right? Even the transgression, it's a story, it's an experience, but it exists. It's a phenomenon in creation, but we wouldn't say, well, now because it exists, it's the ultimate truth. No, it's an experience, right? See the difference? But it's a really strong one, and because it was so prominent, we had to do something about it in terms of the principles of life that the Elohim hold. And so going back to that needlessly being excited, you know, a lot of people are in an elevated state, and when they're in a good state, when life seems to be affirming something for them, then they can hold the energy. Then something will come as a challenge. Then I would rather choose this instead, and they quickly go off the path. And like what Jesus yesterday explained to us, a lot of people that I've released to their own path, then they go back to these patterns and thinking, but I'm so fine. But you know, you're not really fine until you stop and drop everything and you really see. If you can be with yourself in a, let's say, a non-eventful space, I'm not going to say closed off space, but non-eventful state for a while, only then everything that's basically feeding you as events and triviality of life will be making itself conscious. But sometimes, you know, aspects of us are so immature, you can't even access that yet. You have to grow your physical body consciousness first. And that's why people keep on failing, because they have these huge expectations, because they want the good of the path that it provides, but they want the shortcut and they're not willing to do the work. And, you know, again, you will fail. So there's so many pitfalls here, right? And that's why Spirit talked to me recently about the true Immaculate One. And the Elohim came to me after, you know, when we were doing lots of this healing work, and they said to me, for now, from our perspective, they said, even though, you know, I've met different people, you know, all from all walks of life throughout my journey, and exchanged a lot of, you know, my knowledge and training and skills with those people, but they're not their skills until they master them from within, as you know. So people can stay in my presence in this radiance for a while, and everyone then will have to, you know, walk their path as well. That's how it always was for me. You know, people come and go, but the truth, and me being an illumined being and here to teach the immaculate path of true life giving, then that's for me is a constant. That's been the only constant in my life, and I wouldn't change that, because it's a constancy that's really interdependent between me and God. And you literally have to know God within where you are, who you are. You can't know God through someone else. No matter how tempting sometimes it might be through someone who's very close to God in that nature, but it still cannot be done. You will have to walk the path, and eventually you're going to have to choose the choices without being triggered and pushed by someone. Like, that is how it was for me. No one pushed me. I just knew these things. I carried them within my heart already. They were already living in my womb, yeah? And so, it's my favorite motto, right? It is what it is. And for so many beings, they keep on stumbling because they put these expectations upon themselves, but they're false. You simply have to remove the falsehoods by following the trajectory of where you are. And, you know, recently someone kept on telling me, but the guidance said this, the guidance, and I have to remind you again, drop that word. Guidance and the truth are not the same things. You know how many people I've witnessed being fooled by what they call the guidance? Remember, again, our planet has so many impacts every day, not just all good energies. And the whisperers everywhere. So you have to replace this, what even Jesus called the mental guidance in each moment that feeds your mind. You're thinking, oh yeah, I'm so high, I'm there, I'm here, I'm where I want to be. Not all the time. That which feeds you through glamorizing you, praising you is not, in most cases, it's not of God. God is the silent witnessing of yourself that's very neutral. The consciousness of God, the golden Christ luminosity is very neutral. It's organic, it's intrinsic. But that which glamorizes you and gives you these ideas about yourself is not. So replace the guidance for how you feel in the body, for what your feeling side of life wants to tell you, because only in these feelings there is the truth. And unfortunately, although it's so intrinsic for humanity, so many have forgotten about this simplicity of life. Go for the feelings, go for the feeling nature. What do you feel? Don't go for the words, I got these words or visions or images. All of these can be influenced. All of these can be distorted. Like recently, right, I had to really witness that, how someone as of the late came towards me, and you know, most people did not really see me or, you know, really witness an aspect of me. And I could say in that moment, I saw, well, that person maybe really sees me, and they have this acknowledgement and they have this respect for me that others before didn't demonstrate. But even in that, I felt how a part of me was feeling that because there was this approach that was more like respectful, I still carried blind spots that, you know, I didn't fully see, because some of this didn't come from, as I saw it later, as it was shown through the true presence of God and witnessing in deep meditation. It wasn't coming from the person, but I was actually being glamorized by these beings, right? They wanted me to fall for something because they knew they have better advantages this way, you know. Oh, she likes the respectful approach, so let's try this, you know, let's just try this and we see how we're gonna get her on our side. Well, you have to be so mature, and I had to see through all of those tricks. But the last trick was the hardest, right? So one night, I'm feeling terribly depleted, like all my energy was gone. And the next day, I was shaking in my body. I couldn't even hold my body straight. And that was me trying to actually see and catch the invisible, phantom-like energy that I talked to you about last year, I believe. But mostly we did the Patreon work on this note. And this energy is everything that still relates to being called to the mission that makes you feed something that gives you an idea. Oh yeah, that's why I'm here, that's why we're here. And it feels, again, glamorizing. It's like a false sense of honoring, because you feel an importance behind it. Like if there's any sense of, ooh, I'm important, there's a lack of humility there, right? Missions tend to have that. And you have to know something anyway that Spirit told me like years ago. Only advanced lumen beings who come on the planet that for their own betterment, advancement in the missions, only they actually have missions. Everyone has a life purpose. We are that purpose. Each soul, it's their purpose. The moment you say, well, I have a mission with the earth and of earth, no. That keeps you anchored here. And again, something we're going to talk more about in the Ascension update. But when you truly are the Immaculate One, you are so humble in your essence. You don't feel you're more important. Even if you're the closest to God, you're so humble. You understand that what you exude in this state of divine grace has the ability to move mountains beyond what anything that you would be able or capable of doing or performing. It's all a hoax. And especially for advanced light beings, because we can do specific things, darkness would come and say, well, here, this is the offering, this is the task for you. And you would think, well, I'm doing this because who else will? Because I can. But let me tell you something. If your body can't, because you have an earth body, we're not in a limitless life force supply and reserve here. And if a being or a consciousness approaches you and gives you that impression that, well, you have to go and just follow along the line, and never you would stop and just, hey, say, whoa, what do I have from this? Is this balanced? Is this mutual? Is this feeding me and my body? Is this just depleting my reserves? And I had to ask myself this question after a month and a half of investment into something that for me was like, whoa, it's just another drainage, just another looping, right? And then I had to see really clearly, wait a minute, this is false. Not all about it, but there was elements that really kept me going in another looping and a spin. And I had to follow these impulses because these were the last remnants of what still kept me in that pattern. And when we are in our truth, as I am now in my truth, you're just witnessing yourself and you're feeling you're serving God. And through serving God, serving yourself and serving the human spirit, just by living this life. You know, when an advanced being comes here as an offering of grace of the God, they're being asked directly by God. They're not a group of ET beings that has these rescue missions and fancy tasks and assignment. They're asked literally by God himself, herself. Because they don't have that ego. On earth, however, we can fall prey to that kind of ego. Everyone can, even the most advanced being. That's why we have to be so vigilant in carrying the essence and the light of Christ so we don't fall or succumb to these things. They will be glamorizing. They will feel like appealing. They will give you a sense of, oh, being special. I'm not special in that regard. I no longer want to be. But I am the chosen one. But I'm not chosen through, whatever kind of self-appraised witnessing. I'm chosen through God directly. And God chose me, and I was created as the immaculate one. However, transgression happened. What is the immaculate one? The immaculate one of God is the one who embodies these living life principles. You hold them in your womb, your seed of life, which we all have in our illumined seed crystal. It's just not activated. It's dormant in most of humanity, unfortunately. And that's why I want to do, and I'm doing this work on Patreon now to, work with this inner illumined template of life and life-giving. And one who not just carries this, but they demonstrate this principle. And sometimes people wouldn't understand why such a chosen one would act in ways that feel very neutral. They would feel, well, that's not very loving, because we associate love with being emotional and needy, and it's not unconditional when it's like that. And most people still are functioning through conditions. I'm going to show you all the love and respect in this, but when you walk with me, the moment you kind of stop pouring them the love, they get rebellious and not the same, and they would withdraw from you and, withhold and temper tantrums and all of that. That's all conditional. And it's all been learned through the process of aspects of us that made us less than humanity, less than the spirit of the human spirit that lives within all of us. So when you serve God by serving yourself in that devotion, you serve the spirit of humanity only through illuminating your own human experience. That is the immaculate desire of life, the immaculate template that each of the Elohim beings and all the creations, they poured into life, and a lot of them here gathered in this humanity present here now, and a lot of these people now making connections with me and finding my work because it is immaculate. My work has always been immaculate. It's not to feed you any belief. It's always to pull you closer to yourself, to guide you closer to yourself, and to dismantle all that is fake and false. And if at any point a part of you says, oh, you're so cold because you kind of swish things away, I have to, because I swish things away that aren't true. They're working against you as a human. They're not serving you. They don't care. I care. Because I'm of God, and God cares. And God doesn't want headless chickens, running around this planet, not even knowing who they are. The gifts of the divine they can use in prayer, in invocation, in simply asserting themselves in the proper way. That's what's needed. And when you do that, then you're truly an immaculate one. And of course, in most people, lifetimes, that wouldn't just be accessible right away because they've gathered a lot of patterns that are still egoic and conditional. But they're at least on their way of accepting the template that is the immaculate template. So what recently I had to go through with my family, because a part of me, my human child, was also angry. I had to be hurt so much for this to happen, and I was asking them all these questions in one session, and they literally showed to me how I had to, basically I carried the transgression in my womb, so that's why I had a lot of these womb pulsations that were very painful through these last few years, and because the distortion took place at that level, right? And we're going to go deeper into what the transgression is and what the fallen ones have been trying to do that. I'm going to share it here. but they were actually showing me, right, that I had to liberate this transgression through the womb, and certain things were placed in my womb. Also, they hijacked my beloved, which is again written in my womb, this principle of life, which is sacred Heroes Gamos union. So what we did, they showed me what the Elohim did. They put another being, they put their essence into my womb, through which I can finally join my own true beloved essence through. And when that point of maturation for me, when that cultivation was complete, I had to release that being from my womb, because they were no longer serving me. They were just keeping me in the looping. So for me to return back to my true beloved is what actually my family called us. They called us the immaculate one, which is me, and the righteous one, which is him, my true beloved. And they showed me him as Jesus Christ approached me one day in a deep meditation and healing session, and he said, I want to tell you more about your beloved. And he showed me this vision, how he is actually the last ones of his lineage, which is the Christ lineage, when these beings were mostly advancing themselves and they were being enlightened, and they left the planet. They weren't here. But he said he was holding the space because it's like the merging of Jesus's work and lineage and Aurea's work and lineage of liberation. So Jesus had that devotional path, as you know, and they placed together with Magdalene, as you know, they were avatars of Illumined Union at that Piscean age. They placed this in this record crystal, right, in the template of Illumined design. And then Aurea placed in my womb seed crystal the liberation essence. So basically the work we were doing with transgression, Elohim told me, they said we were the only ones that we could actually witness the event, the phenomena in this universe from our space of consciousness. They said no other human could witness it the way we did. So even in my worst, remember, I was still fully awake. I was going through these layers and layers and keep pushing through and sharing with all of you. I've never basically fallen. I fully succumbed to what it was and what it tried to do to me in this body, because they were trying to cut me down completely as the chosen immaculate one, because that's how Elohim created me, as Aurea's direct incarnation, as Polona Aurea, as my human child, right, receiving her essence. So Aurea is my essence self, and Polona is my human body consciousness self. So in that merging process, right, I told you I was hijacked through that transgression. Those of you who don't know and you're new. So basically, by releasing that, that which kept me going, I needed that imprint they showed to me in the womb, and it kept me going, feeling the love, pursuing the love, but it wasn't the immaculate love. So when it was time, I released that, and they told me then it was finally time to liberate, which basically liberated the beloved concept, which is not a concept, but it's a conceptual point, right? So I was asking them a few questions then, and I will read them to you because these thoughts came through. I was really sad. I felt, well, I was violated. Well, they're just standing there watching, and I was asking them really through prayer and devotion, and I got all these answers. So I asked them if the Elohim family knew that I'll be transgressed, and of course they said yes. Then I said, did they allow it? The answer was no. Did God allow it? The answer was also no. Were the Elohim then tricked by transgressors? The answer was also no. So they knew, but it was like something that was inevitable, something that was simply a part of the timeline that we were creating as the immaculate timeline and the seed of Golden Christ Ascension. I asked, was it all a part of the family's plan? They said yes. Did they let it happen, or did they abandon me during this process? They said no. So basically they said they monitored my every step and every move. Although as a human self, I didn't really always have that feeling, right? Was I, or were we, it was not an I, this was not at the individual level, but my human experienced it, and they were the ones who were witnessing the process. And I asked, were we the only hope to end the transgression phenomena, like by bringing it to God to be witnessed and judged? And they said yes. They would trigger the end of this horror by taking it up to God to be judged and prevented. You know, that's like a divine wrath, and they said yes. Will now I be able to ascend in my own time when my time comes? Before, as you know, I couldn't, because, you know, everything was closed off and it was all reversed in me. So they said yes. It's also related with my beloved and the timeline we've basically had as a vow, as an agreement together. And they told me he is the one that I'd always been feeling, and they called as the righteous one and the immaculate one. When I was at that point and I asked, you know, I've talked about the immaculate concept even in my mission statement videos. Remember the creation angels video, the Elohim children and all of that. And I asked them, you know, how many still already have this instilled they kind of have the breakthrough within their illumined, immaculate template of life. They said, for now, they said, for you, you are the only immaculate one at this point. But they say, but I, as the seed, I will activate, I will, not people, but I would activate the acceleration process for many to follow who would be willing to pursue the path. And this is not a path of worshiping anything else but the principle of life. You can't worship, the moment you worship another entity, even if it's like the master you most love, if you don't see that master as a brother, as someone you would walk a certain part of the trail with, or see them as a loving guide and a certain, you know, they kind of join, you ask them to join you or you join them, you still give them your power. And even great illumined masters, we're not, you know, we're not gods. We have all God within, which is the living God principle in any being. And all illumined beings are divine beings. They're immaculate ones. So as immaculate ones, they can choose and create these specific timelines when there's about to be a new insertion of the life principle, right? The Elohim principles of life hold all this together at the fundamental primordial creation level. And they can choose to create aspects of themselves that become physical, like I became a physical human being. But it's not like per se to now, okay, let's, like, everyone will be like that. But they pour all of their loving grace as this emanation to exude that, so everyone else's, like, sacred rose would start opening up. But it's not a direct process, it's an indirect, cohesive process. It's a truly beautiful divine process. So all of this, right, all of this story for me, it wasn't just a story, it was my experience, and I wanted to document every single step of the way, but also for you to see how transgression basically matured me. It ruined my body to a level that I know and will never be the same. I have huge back issues as well, and some of them I think are also because of the cold climate, and I used to be very sporty, and I would sweat, and then I would be out in the wind and recording for hours and running and sitting down in the cold. Partially because of that, but also partially because of these electric waves and impulses. So when these waves are still in me, they said it's not direct transgression. I'm now fully, they told me that I'm going through this stage now that's called the immaculate birth. They keep showing me an egg, and that's why I'm very vulnerable at this time, probably not so outwardly spoken and sharing. I'm in this more cocoon-like state. They call this my immaculate birth, that my body is now going back to this primordial stage. And it's interesting how they said the transgression, as difficult as it was, it didn't move a thing, they said. Yes, it rewired certain things, you know, like my body's DNA, like my hair, right? They're like here at the back, they're like completely electrocuted. They're like, you know, when hair is being put electricity in, it becomes like it's dead, right? And it's frizzy, it's like shrinks, you know. That's how my hair looks here all the way at the back when these cords went in and through this, you know, it was all corded. But they said in the matter of the essence, they said it didn't touch a thing. So basically, isn't it interesting how the physicality got affected, but the seed didn't? And we're going to talk about this in the next segment about the Ascension update. And it's like, you know, you can mess with the divinity, you can mess with God, as, you know, these dark ones are doing, these controllers are doing, but you can't control God. You know, you can write around it. Even now with this modification, right, the DNA, RNA modification, like you can modify it, but you can't change it at the core level. That's the thing. And although it's dangerous as it is, there's also elements of God that can be written out of the equation like ever. You know, this DNA test they once did, and the DNA actually, some scientists did it, and the DNA spelled God. You know, it was really interesting. Yeah, in a different way, like in a Hebrew language, I believe. And that literally reads as that I am, that I am. And it's kind of like God looking itself. I'm saying it because it's both feminine and masculine. It's the Mother and the Father and the Christ. It's the Trinity of life. And it's always like through every one of us and all the experiences we go through, God is looking back at itself. That's what we need, the mirrors. That's why sometimes, no matter how beautiful you are, you need a loving mirror for you to witness another aspect of yourself. So I've recently did this, you know, I created a super powerful, important mirror for myself so that I could walk into the completion of this work. And each time I would do that as Aurea, then I would return to myself to my human physical body and tend to lovingly care for it and nurture it. There's something else that Jesus recently showed me. That was actually yesterday, because when I went into this work, I'm actually going to read you one prayer, yes. When I went into this work, at each level of the breakthrough, there was a new level I had to push through these impulses. I was really inspired to create a prayer that's a truly powerful prayer. No psalm, no biblical, whatever kind of invocation is more powerful than something you conjure up through your own God, sovereign self presence. So these prayers came exactly as sacred intentions that I needed in that moment, that I called for, becoming like, when you call something out through a prayer, you're summoning that up. You're using your own divinity, like, you're conjuring up forces, but for the light, right? And that's very, very important. So whenever we do that, it's like we're acting on the behalf of God as God, knowing that we're not God as the ultimate, as all life and all living beings, but an aspect of God that's using God's birthright. And that's the Immaculate One. The Immaculate One knows its birthrights. It knows how to create through sacred law, Holy Trinity of life. You walk Holy Spirit through you. Holy Spirit moves through your body. That's the great essence of life. And all the life force of God, all the vitality you need. If you're not aware, if you're not clear, and if you're in a state of confusion and you don't know what's draining you, you have to use the prayer, because not all energies are visible. So my family of light actually applauded me with this last one, which was the invisibility of those energies still impulsing me into the belief that I have this mission. Because remember, I shared with you before that Aurea, as my essence beloved, he already came to me this year. He said, there's no longer an earth mission for you. You've done it. Jesus came, he channeled through my mother. He said, Polona's done her mission. Absolutely. All aces. My only mission now is Golden Christ Ascension. And teaching these illumined principles of life until I'm still here in the physical. And then one day I will not be, because that's my own choice. When an illumined being does the work, they move on to the next sphere. I'm not going to be here just, we don't do that. I'm going to have my next assignment. And that will be, again, through my Elohim family of light and not through the impulses of the lesser nature. So each time I went through and I created this prayer, it was like a strong new movement of illumined light moving through. And each time it felt like when I was reenacting the prayer through myself and invoking it into being, into becoming a living prayer, because that's what a living prayer is. Your words become powerful intentions, they become energies, they become manifesting, conjuring up reality through sacred law of alchemy. Things become eventually returned to you as principle of life embodied, taking up form, taking up position. So you need the right self-assertion and positioning for that to position itself through you, and for you to release that which you don't need and it's really not serving you, and to release your power of God, and that to be released, surrendered, and then coming back to you in its immaculate state. So the Immaculate One also needs to learn the art of prayer. You need to know how prayer serves you as a godly being, as a God One, divine avatar being. A lot of people say, I'm this, and that, but they don't embody that. You have to do the work. All of the aspects of life have to be fully alive, fully awake within you. Then before that, you're not the Immaculate One. You have the seed. Everyone does. You have to keep on rising that seed, waking it up, rising it further up, rising it up. And as it reaches all the levels of distortion, you have to dismantle those levels. And some of them then, at the last stage, they will have to die. And when they die, they're transformed into something more beautiful, which is truly divine, and they come from divine God's grace, not through something that's truly an inception and imposition. So I will read you the prayer. I just don't know which one, because they're all so beautiful. I think I will read you, because I have an Immaculate One, but Spirit said for now it's just for me, because every being, when you understand your own Immaculate state, you will know what to say. You will know how you will feel and witness yourself. So that's why I wanted to at first, and Spirit said, no, go slow. Everyone, when they're at that level, they're going to know what to say. They're going to know how to assert themselves. So what we're actually going to read, I'm going to read you the Sovereignty of Life Force prayer. I actually also read it on Patreon with the detailed, in-depth discussion we did. I did on the video there. This prayer is so super important because it serves to dismantle all that is truly not of you. It doesn't come from God, and you have to release those lesser intentions. And sometimes you won't see them because they're of the invisible nature. So when you work with prayer, you're addressing both the seen and unseen, which is why this prayer is so important and so strong. Okay, we're going to read that together, and then there's this last thing I want to share, and then we're off for now. I'm dismissed. I'm dismissing you, my class. Just kidding. So this is called the Sovereignty of Life Force Prayer, okay? Pray with me, my beloved ones. Beloved God, I am. I come to you now as a sovereign being that I am, as Polona Aurea. And whenever I say my name, you have to say your name. So I would say Aurea, that I am, and you would say your name. For those of you who don't know your spirit name yet, just say your human name. You know, that would serve you. I ask you for the full sovereignty of my life force that from now on belongs only to me as Aurea, that I am. May no other external interferences hold any claims over my life force and energy consumption that belongs only to you and serving you in all my purity and devotion, beloved God I am. May any external forces and influences whose intentions are not pure and try to deceive me in your name, but are a false light instead, be immediately exposed and brought back to you for your judgment and karmic retribution. And may all these intentions that come to me under a guise of rescue missions, controlling agendas, inceptions, and deceptions be returned to you immediately and be therefore nullified in your name as God I am. And may all lesser or lower intentions backfire and crumble down, as I am aware of my presence as Aurea. From now on, my sovereign body and the life force I cultivate belongs only to me, as I associate only with you as God directly, as I also associate with and answer to only the holy, immaculate Elohim and Christ-like beings who serve you and the cosmic Christ principle of life under divine law, in the name of divine love. My sovereign body is only connected to these immaculate beings and myself as the Immaculate One for the purposes of Holy Mother's love, exuding my true essence of immaculate love, as well as anything that cultivates the healing energy for this body of mine. This body now only serves love, and as love it remains in its humble state of giving and receiving love. The only purpose of this body of mine is golden Christ ascension and the illumined body principles that serve that ascended timeline through the golden light of Christ. No one and nothing that doesn't come from that core purpose has any access to me anymore. I no longer serve an earth's mission, as my mission work is done and completed. I am only here to ascend within the golden Christ light. So be it, and so it is. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Lord. This is my favorite prayer as of now. There's also an ascension prayer I did. Maybe we'll do that in the ascension update. It's going to be a big one. That's that. If you don't feel that's your path, if you don't want to ascend, you're just trying to get some more spiritual teachings, but you're not there yet, don't use that prayer. It has to come from your heart. If it comes out of falsehoods or a false hope, but you're not really feeling it, just drop it. This is something I resonate with, and it was written from my heart. And those beings who are on the path, they will resonate with that. And it will feel powerful and deeply invigorating for them. But something, as I was trying to explain before, but I was, interrupting myself, when something as powerful comes through, all these things that were still in our energy, like hooks and impulses, they're literally pulled out by immaculate light. And when this happens, right, a part of our body and the body's, like you have in your body something that always kind of tempers the energy. It's kind of always in temperance, right? So the body will feel a depletion of that energy. What I feel then is I would get, really dizzy or tipsy, and it feels like, loss of energy. And this is when Jesus came in and he explained to us that at that time, you need to call in the Divine Mother for help, healing, light, and assistance, that she brings you all that you gave away, that basically you lost temporarily. And when you give that lesser and you surrender it through those hooks being pulled out and all the tentacles and all that's still being impulsed, but not pulse of life based, it doesn't come from the core of love, the immaculate love of God, not the human destroyer love, then all these aspects need to return. And basically, who knows how to do that best but the mother, who is the ruling principle of all life and life-giving. So the mother, then you would ask and you would feel her wrapping you up in her love through her womb, and you would get that energy back. And the moment I did that, I already started doing the spiral, because the feminine principle of life is a spiral, right? So remember again, Christ told us just recently that the Christ is an acting, living, active principle of life. So if you're just sitting around and you say, oh, there's so much darkness and this and that, I'm always under attack, and you don't do nothing, you're just always like, you know, like feeling like, oh, hiding yourself and basically not using any of the gifts, right? Your sovereignty, your assertion, power of prayer, divine trinity, knowing your divine law, knowing your birthrights, knowing your law. Every soul needs to know its freedom rights. Any law that's physical that is basically imposed, it's just a tiny projection and filtering of the universal law. If you know universal law, you're good. You don't need to study law. The reason why law is made complicated is for people to find loopholes, right? And, you know, ego, when it gets in the way. Everything that's divine, nothing is complex. It's simple, and the moment you know it and then you demonstrate it, you are closer to utilizing your own sovereign divine God power. But you also need to know that love is a part of that, and love feeds and nurtures your physical human body. So sometimes these energies are intense, and you will need to fill your well up again. The fountain of youth has to be rejuvenated within you. So do that step always. Anchor yourself. Put the golden cord of light always and anchor yourself into the earth. Ground yourself. Don't forget that. It's very important. It's very important to go into the soil of the earth, to be physical, to tend to the body. Otherwise, you basically deplete your body. A lot of people are just doing, or they're going to jobs, or they're being drained basically by the matrix, but they never cultivate. So they just go in this hibernation mode for a while. You know, you put on your headphones and just listen to music, and you would kind of temporarily feel you've kind of assimilated yourself a bit, but you haven't really replenished yourself, like really, really, really from the inside out, that you're rejuvenating through divine life force. People just think, you don't even think about it, but it's so important. Like the moment you go into it, you have to do the spiral work. And I've been teaching the Illumined Golden Ascension Spiral Principles in my Patreon at the 3rd Mastery tier level. So if you're interested, go and do the work. It's very simple, but it's also very important for those who truly wish to pursue that path and you no longer want to stay in the matrix and in the 3D. You want to move ahead. You're ready. You want to be more than just this encased physicality. Your life coming more into the space of refinement, and that's when you truly know what it means to walk with the masters as your own mastering and masterful presence. And it's really important, you know, to do the work. So Christ is a living principle. You have to use it. Whenever you feel darkness and it's a heavy day, just like we've been having these last 2 weeks, it's a really terrible dark wave here. But you have to use the Christ. You have to put it in motion. You always have to move the energy through the Christ principle. That basically is what illuminates your body and creating the shifts. That is how you serve the human spirit, through the immaculate plan of life and life-giving. The last thing I want to mention is related to my work. That's one-on-work, physical work, one-on-one physical sessions. I had the most incredible experience and breakthrough through my session work as of the late. So after this stage of healing the transgression, you know, and just seeing all these things and dismantling them and all these lesser impulses, as I became more of my true immaculate one, I started serving in a different way, and it was less depleting for me, because in the past when I did sessions, let's say I would be 4 hours on a phone call with someone and just doing the work, it felt like I had to do a lot. It was a lot of effort still there. And I was so depleted that sometimes I needed days to recover, and it didn't make sense for me, right? So this is still the masculine principle. This feminine principle of life is just the mother's essence comes through me, and it's this graceful presence. It's like in an instant, I just start channeling already, like instantly flowing. And it's really just energizing for me. Even if it's like, say, 3 hours or so, I would feel very energized at the end of the session, because I just go into this higher, elevated, extended consciousness mode and start receiving and picking up from spirit. And what's been fascinating is that in this last, let's say, 4 sessions, I actually witnessed a process that I realized what I'm actually doing, or I'm able of doing now as a pure one, as the immaculate one. I'm bringing these beings, these people, closer to their oversoul aspects or their star family. So in this last 4 cases, they were all very much like taking them up to meet their star family. And there was this huge energy work being done, and then the mother usually comes through. I had this sensation like 4 times, because I also work with sound, that all these 4 people told me, like, I just had tears in my eyes. What was this? Like their body started to respond. And you can't do that when you're mentally speaking to someone. You're like, you know, saying certain concepts and putting them there in the framework, because this is something that everyone has to basically do on their own. But it's just this been like I've been like a midwife to this process, and I would almost like to call it the rebirthing process of that soul, or higher aspects of them needing to come through, or them seeing themselves who they truly are, witnessing them sometimes even for the first time in their life, just as an essence, not as what they had as an idea about themselves and who they are and what their mission is supposed to be. Because a lot of people are always like seeking that special one, special thing, and it's again keeping them on this wild goose chase, keeping them looping, because it's not a one thing. You can't put God and like pour it into one thing. It's impossible. It doesn't exist. And the more you ascend, the more you join yourself in this oversoul aspect, and the principles of universality just came through. Universality, or these universal principles, they feel more appealing to you, and everything feels like condensed and limiting. Even the body, eventually, you will outgrow it, because it's just the part of this metamorphosis, and it's taking gradual steps for each being. But that's simply what ascension is. And we will go deeper in the ascension part of the video update. So my ascension update is coming after this video. I hope you will join me as well in that one. But also to really consider still going through my mission video works, because they're very important. I shared a lot of concepts there. And if you are one of the beings considering having a one-on-one personal session with me, I would highly recommend it, because it's just these sessions I've been doing, they were just like a journey. Like we went on a journey, and I was with that being. I was witnessing them and their soul, and I was in this truly pure elevated state, but not like a fanatical kind of elevation. It was really down to earth, just like it is what it is. And I was just feeling so happy that I'm able to have that gift. And you know, until I'm still on earth like this, physical, I can share and I can be there for individuals in this way. And when I make my passageway into the next realm of experience, as many of you also will tend to do in the near future, or you know, like however your journey of advancement will look like for you, this is what I can do now, and then, you know, will be a different kind of work. But I am excited that these sessions shifted so drastically for me, because now I'm finally enjoying these sessions. In the past, there was a part of me that kind of dreaded this work. I love doing it, but I dreaded it because it was physically exhausting for me to how to feel afterwards. I didn't feel cultivated enough in return, you know, because the work I don't do it for money. I do it to assist people. Of course, I have to be compensated for the work, but it's like, you know, it's not really what that repay is for me. And when I actually feel repaid is when that journey is complete and the person's like, I love this. And they're just in this almost like a renewed body state, and everything that they were holding on to before, and even the questions they had, they kind of drop away. And they just surrender more to life. And I'm just witnessing them. I'm lovingly witnessing them through the eyes of spirit and their oversoul and their true mission, which is their soul mission. Not an outside projection of what we make missions to be or what we make them about. So it was really honoring for me. It's an honorable work. And if I get to meet any of you, possibly in that framework, I will lovingly accept you and love to do this work and journeying with you through spirit. But until the next video, this one has been long enough. Fortunately so, it's been warm enough, I believe, for now. So I will say goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video update. As always, so much love, wisdom, and power, and take care. Take real good care of yourself. And I hope you will join my Patreon one day, because there's lots more videos there that I go much deeper than here in these general video broadcasts. So thank you for your presence from my deep immaculate presence. May my life presence touch you and your life in ways that maybe they're not imaginable now, but for your own ascending path, they're very important. So thank you for being here. With love. Bye for now.